Was it honestly the best? Cause I just wanna see the next. 부지런히 지나온 어제들 속에 참 아름답게. Yeah, the past was honestly.
That earworm is going to be on repeat in my brain all day now. This is yet to come, the most beautiful moment from K-pop superstars BTS.
The best moment is yet to come. The moment is yet to come.
South Korea has a thriving pop music scene known better as K-pop. Another one of the biggest K-pop bands is a group called 17. Now, they've got fans and critics talking and arguing about the use of AI in K-pop. They recently released their song Maestro. The tease for the music video for Maestro features an AI-generated scene, and it landed in K-pop fan chat rooms with a bang. The band has said they did not use AI to write songs for the latest album, but AI is being used by other K-pop acts in various ways. There's been lots of debate over whether AI and K-pop is a natural progression for a genre that's always been big on innovation, or if AI could undermine the authenticity of the music they love. Michelle Cho is an assistant professor at the University of Toronto who studies Korean media. Hello, Michelle.
Hello.
Let's start at the beginning. How big is the K-pop scene around the world?
The K-pop industry is a billion-dollar commercial pop music industry. It's also music videos, live performances, that sort of thing. And it's really growing in size and the way that it's kind of represented on global pop music charts. In the past year, in 2023, 4 of the 10 top-selling artists in the world were K-pop artists. So this gives us just a bit of a sense of how much of an impact K-pop is having on the global music scene.
Mm-hmm. So who is 17? Introduce us to that band.
Yeah, 17 is a boy band that consists of 13 members. So it's a little confusing sometimes, is 17 referring to how large the group is? It's a large group, but they are very successful right now. And at the moment, I think they're probably the biggest K-pop boy band because BTS is currently doing their military service, so they're on a bit of a hiatus. So that kind of opens up a space for other groups to gain some exposure. And so they're a group that has been around for about a decade, and they're actually known in the K-pop industry for the way that the group members are involved in songwriting and choreography. So they have a bit of a different image to other K-pop groups that are really kind of following the directives of their entertainment companies by being much more involved in the authorship of their content. So that's kind of the way that they've distinguished themselves in the industry.
Let's get you to describe the Maestro video for us and what it does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The Maestro music video is a very high production value kind of spectacle that I think might kind of conjure up dystopian science fiction, actually, which is a kind of interesting thing to think about as a music video concept. But it's a music video that kind of presents the members as conductors. So the term maestro is a reference to kind of what they are doing in a space where it's kind of a dystopian urban landscape. There's a really cool effect where one of the skyscrapers that's pictured, it turns into a metronome. So there's this kind of reference to classical music as an arena of human creativity and genius. And it's being juxtaposed with popular music that has a lot of technological and electronic elements. But the group are standing there and they are kind of battling these robots. And so the entire theme of Maestro is a kind of commentary on the way that humans and their creative energy, they're being threatened by media technologies.
Yeah, it's really interesting because 17, of course, is experimenting with AI, and not just in their videos. How else are they using AI?
What I want to do here is like not perpetuate the idea that K-pop is unique in its use of AI. And I think comments about what 17 were doing with AI in the track Maestro and their album 17 is Here have been a bit muddled. And so I just want to clarify that first. I think that pop music producers, a lot of musicians in and outside of the genre are using AI in a similar way that, people in a lot of content industries are using AI. Some people are really for it. Some people are very much against it. But the use of generative AI, I think, is kind of here to stay. Comments that were made at a press conference at the release of the album that contains the lead single Maestro were taken slightly out of context by Western journalists to signify a kind of admission that the member who is responsible for songwriting and production primarily had used AI in that track specifically. He has since denied that, and a lot of fans have kind of used social media platforms to express their anger at the way that the group has been misrepresented, because fans, I think, don't necessarily support AI's use or the idea that, the creativity of the performer should be overshadowed by AI. In the Maestro video itself, the use of AI in one of the teasers, like there are a couple of very short clips that are often released to fans in the days leading up to the single's release. One of the teasers had a clip that had a sequence that was AI generated, and that was kind of made known to fans because of the themes of this video. It's a very self-reflexive kind of exercise of using the track and the video to think about what AI means or its significance in society.
Michelle, before I let you go, just a last comment. I'm curious, it seems as though any conversation around AI and art is always very charged. And what would you say about what that says about where we're headed in the music industry?
I think that the use of AI across many sectors of, what have until now been mainly human creative acts or activities is raising all sorts of questions. I think what I want to do in my conversation with you today is kind of draw attention to the fact that the discussion of AI, specifically in the K-pop industry, it needs to be scrutinized for the way that some Orientalist stereotypes about Asians in particular as like inhuman, robotic, inauthentic. I think that's really what's at play in the discussion specifically of 17 and the way that their track and their statements were kind of miscommunicated. It wasn't necessarily consciously malicious intent, but I think that the way that what they were saying and what they're trying to do, the gestures they're making in Maestro are communicating to people who are not familiar with the group or the way that K-pop operates is entirely different to the way that fans are taking up their treatment, the group's treatment of this issue.
Okay, a really interesting note to end on. Michelle, thank you so much.
Sure, no problem.
Michelle Cho is an assistant professor of Korean media studies at the University of Toronto. Now, 17 isn't the only K-pop act to experiment with generative AI. Bernie Cho is president of DFSB Collective, a creative agency for K-pop artists in the U.S. and South Korea. He joins me now from Los Angeles. Hello, Bernie.
Good morning or good afternoon.
Bernie, what do you make of the last comment we heard from Michelle there, and how perhaps the way in which AI is being used by some K-pop bands, specifically 17, is sort of being perpetuating old stereotypes?
Well, I think some of the stereotypes, from what I can see and what I can sense, is actually quite accurate. The fact of the matter is South Korea is the most wired and wireless digital society in the world. And we see day in, day out, culture and technology are not two words that are very separate. If anything, culture technology is a very accurate term to describe not only the youth culture, digital culture, but pop culture in Korea. it's very much a centrifuge and really synonymous and perhaps even one and the same. And the way technology is currently be applied to not just K-pop, but K-pop culture, products and services is something we're seeing every day and frankly speaking, applied every day. And so, from the Western perspective, I do agree with Professor Cho that there's this stereotype that East Asians are very much obsessed with gears and toys and tech. But the reality is that if we're looking for innovation in how new technologies are being applied, East Asia is generally where it's at, whether it's Korea, Japan, or now China.
So, Bernie, tell me how AI is being used. How would you describe the ways in which the AI is being used in the K-pop music industry right now?
So right now, we're seeing AI being applied not just to teen idols, but to icon artists as well as indie artists. For instance, when it comes to icon artists, we've seen AI applied where the voice technology is used to revive dead singers to create new music. When it comes to indie artists, I work with indie artists who, very much want to go more global, faster, bigger, better, and they're using AI to quickly translate their Korean lyrics into multiple languages. And instead of dropping an album where they have very exquisite artwork, that represents 10 songs, with the use of AI, they're able to create original artwork very quickly, again, with their creative works put through the AI centrifuge so that every single now has album artwork and every song now has visual images that they can attach. And again, similar to teen idols, they can enhance their music videos using AI.
How do you feel about all of this? Because the criticism, of course, is that it's somehow less authentic, and that if they're not writing their own lyrics, are somehow less true to the emotion of the song. Where do you stand on all of that?
Again, with AI currently, there's obviously not just a lot of hype, but more importantly, a lot of hysteria. For me, AI feels less artificial. And in fact, I think it feels more intelligent. AI is very much a tool for a lot of artists. Creativity is still very much an essential part of the process. If there's an artist leaning into AI to basically cruise control the creativity, it's going to be very apparent.
Have fans 100% bought into this idea? Because there is some concern, I think, from fans themselves that it is not reflective of who their, pop idol is.
Well, if there's one area that I think AI still is kind of where the jury might be out, particularly with fans, is right now in Korea, more so than anywhere else in the world, we're seeing a lot of AI-generated idol acts where it's not just the music, but the artists themselves are AI-generated, whether it's through the use of deepfake technologies. We're, for instance, seeing teen idol acts where they're all artificially generated, where it's not just the face, but their entire bodies. And, they sing, they dance, and the inputs that are being used, copyrights or artist rights are not violated because they're very much actively involved in the creation of these AI characters, avatars, and songs. And although it looks cool from afar and it's positioned as being the next cool thing, what we're hearing from fans is that it's not that cool. It's actually a little bit cold, because one of the reasons why K-pop fans are so passionate is the interaction with artists and the fact that these AI artists can't sign signatures, you can't meet them in person, is something that causes problems. And, many of these AI acts have not secured huge success yet. However, it's a work in progress. And, every month, as more and more of these AI-generated bands are coming out, I'm seeing vast improvements, not just in the quality and the quantity, but more importantly, the connection with fans. And so, it's a matter of time where we're starting to see AI bands fighting for chart rankings with real bands.
You think that's inevitable?
Oh, it's already happening. So, yeah.
Aren't there some legal concerns here, in part because the way AI has been able to, glean all of the information it needs to produce what it produces is by combing through stuff that people have made in the past? And isn't there, I believe there are legal challenges on that front.
The legal challenge is very much so in the West, but specific to Korea when it comes to the use of AI creating new music. The government and more importantly, the industry have been extremely careful and respectful as to how the music is used, what music is used in the AI process. And so the machine learning that's occurring is usually, or I should say often or almost always, content that has been cleared, content that has been approved. And as a result, when it comes to AI output in the West, unfortunately, some of the AI software out there is just haphazardly using content and copyrighted materials without permission. The big difference is in Korea, it's with permission.
Bernie, you're clearly an AI enthusiast, and I'm curious if you worry if AI someday puts you out of work and others like you.
I don't think it'll put me out of work in the sense, if anything, it'll allow me to do more work faster, better, bigger, easier. And so, if anything, I'm very grateful for the advent of AI because I feel like I can do not only more in a day, but more importantly, in different languages. Right now, AI has been a tremendous asset, I think, in helping K-pop go more global faster, because one of the most immediate applications that's being used is instead of having artists learn different languages over months and years, this AI technology allows artists to sing, in Korean and then quickly translate their lyrics into different languages, and more importantly, reconfigure their voices, their tone, their manner into very convincing versions in numerous languages. And I love it.
It's incredible stuff. Bernie Cho, thank you for walking us through this.
Thank you.
Bernie Cho is president of DFSB Collective, a creative agency for K-pop artists in the U.S. and South Korea. Now, the wider music industry also looking at artificial intelligence, wondering what's the best way to use it, if at all. Charlie Harding is co-host of the podcast Switched on Pop, which breaks down how music gets made. He joins me from Block Island, Rhode Island. Hello.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
I'm curious about what you make of what you just heard, that AI is inevitable. It's already happening. You better get on board because this is a moving train.
I think maybe I have a slightly more tepid response, that I think that we are in an experimental phase of using AI in music, both in the way that it's used creatively and in the way that it may be confronting challenges in the courts. It's definitely happening, but I think it's happening sort of on the side.
Yeah, tell us a little bit more about the risks and concerns that you see when we use AI-generated music or lyrics.
Well, the main risk is about who owns it. I mean, we're talking about the creative arts here, and at least in North America, there's a lot of uncertainty about who owns these works, right? If you use a service like Udio or Suno, which helps you generate entire whole songs from a prompt in the same way that ChatGPT will help you write an essay from a prompt, these services are currently giving you license to use things that you make from their from their apps, but they are also retaining rights to the same work that you make. And the copyright offices in North America are also very, they're currently not providing copyright to AI-generated works. And so if you care about the ownership of your work, if you're a major pop act, you might be careful about using these tools. These tools are also currently under major lawsuits. This is all going through the courts at this moment. And so it's very uncertain how these tools may work or exist in the future.
We heard from Bernie there that that's only a problem in the West. What's your take on that?
Well, I think, certainly every jurisdiction is going to have different approaches to copyright in AI. Tools that use neural networks and large language models as a way of generating new material off of licensed data will probably have very different kinds of outcomes. The problem is in the case of Udio and Suno, the two main apps that people are using to generate music. These apps they haven't admitted to using copyrighted work, but I think been more or less all but proven that you can get output from these apps that clearly indicate that they've been trained on copyrighted works. And so this is all very much up. It's up in the air. It's uncertain. And when there's uncertainty and risk, I think major players in the creative arts are going to be more careful and maybe, like in K-pop, use only AI models that have licensed permissions.
Give me a sense of some of the stuff you've seen that where artists are experimenting with the technology right now. Some of the stuff maybe we haven't heard about yet so far on the program.
Yeah, they go from, and again, to very creative. We mentioned things like voice separation. The Beatles used that on Now and Then. We've talked about ChatGPT already, generating lyrics and rhymes and things like that. That's used from time to time. There certainly are some very creative ways that people are using AI. Again, I think it's on the margins. An example would be like Google has a really fun synthesizer called NSynth that allows you to combine two unalike sounds and create an entirely new sound. So if you want to hear what a saxophone and a cat sound like when merged together, you can do that using technically an AI tool. Artists like Holly Herndon are using voice cloning services to be able to experiment with letting other people use their voice.
That was my voice, but I didn't sing that clip. I trained an AI on my own voice, and now she can sing anything in multiple languages.
So those are some of the ways that people are using it, but we've also seen some major cases where people are generating whole songs that are getting some buzz on the charts, and that's certainly been a part of it recently.
The problem is, when Cher started using auto-tune, I think people were like, oh, this is kind of neat. But also, that's not really Cher's voice. And it's quite evident is what I'm trying to say, I guess. And is that apparent in AI, or is it usually it's unclear that AI has been used?
That's a great example, because when Cher released the song Believe, the producers of the song obfuscated how they got that effect, which was at the time called the Cher effect. We now know it to be auto-tune. And when people heard it in the late 90s, it was really stunning. It was something that was unlike any human voice that had ever been heard. Now, of course, it is ubiquitous. Auto-tune is a very specific tool, and it's pretty easy to identify it when it's used in a heavy-handed manner. I think when we're talking about AI tools, there's so many varieties of tools that people could be using. It's very likely that radio shows might use some sort of denoising tool that could potentially have a AI algorithm that helps denoise. Again, we could have situations where people are generating lyrics, and it's very hard to tell if those lyrics were handwritten or maybe an AI assisted in doing so. So unlike autotune, I think the AI tools are just so vast, it's going to be much more difficult to be able to identify where these tools have been used and where they haven't.
It's curious in the conversation we had with Michelle about 17 talking about whether or not AI was used and the purpose of using AI, and fans reacting to that. And as I said earlier, it's just very charged. And there is some shame that you should be able to produce a great song without using AI. Do you think that sort of sentiment disappears over time?
I can't speak to any particular case where someone might feel shame, but I do believe that there are a number of taboos that exist about artificial intelligence right now. Some of them have to do with the technology itself. Its very high use of energy, its use of other people's creative output to create new output, but also it intersects with issues just within popular music aesthetics, that generally we like to hear songs that we believe are being made by an artist speaking to some interior truth. Now, we all know that pop music has songwriters, oftentimes that we are fabricating whole new and interesting fictions, but that relationship between fans of the expectation that this is you speaking from your soul, there's always going to be, I think, that sort of taboo. And so the use of artificial intelligence in music is going to have to confront that fan expectation.
Bernie Cho's final comment was like, it's here to stay, get used to it. I'm excited about it. It's only going to make me better in the job that I do. What are your thoughts, Charlie, on that?
Oh, well, these lawsuits with Suno and Udio could have very big ramifications for the entire artificial intelligence industry. There are so many cases going through the courts about whether or not training your data off of copyrighted works is going to be allowed. And if we start to see precedents come through in court cases that says, no, you can't do that, it could be through cases where publishers are suing artificial intelligence companies. It could be through the case of the RIAA, the recording industry, suing these music services. Those cases could really determine the future of how we use these large language models. So I think that artificial intelligence in some form is here to stay. As it is today, is very much to be determined.
Charlie Harding, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Charlie Harding is host of the podcast Switched on Pop, which breaks down how music gets made.